Wow, I'm so blessed. Thank you all for having me here. It is great to be out in nature with all of you fathers. And I apologize for my tardiness. I had some flights to catch, and I was finally just able to land and scurry over here. And your patience has been greatly appreciated. And I wanted to start out this conversation with a line from the prophet Joel, who says in chapter 1, verse 3, he starts out, "Tell your children about it. Let them, all of your children, tell their children and their children, yet another generation." So we hear from the prophet Joel that we are to continue sharing our wisdom and our word and what the Lord has given to us. And we hear again throughout the Old Testament and into the New Testament. In Deuteronomy, we see chapter 6, verse 7, "You shall teach your children diligently." And Exodus 13, verse 14, "That so it shall be when your children asks you in the time to come, saying, 'What is this?' And that you shall answer him, 'What is this?' Your children will say, 'What is this?' And you shall answer him." It was just in this park a couple of weeks ago where I was on a family hike with my wife and two kids, the youngest of which she's 1, and her curiosity expresses itself in her taking objects in the world and putting them in her mouth. Leaves, grass, tree bark, dirt, everything. My son, Andrei, who is 3 years old, his curiosity expresses himself in very challenging questions. So as we were walking through the trails, my son Andrei, he says, "Tato," which means dad in his mother's language. "Tato, what's this? What's that? What is this? What's that? Show me this. What's this? What's that?" And I couldn't keep up with all the questions, let alone give him an answer. So at some point, he's holding up a leaf. He's holding up some grass or a rock or some sticks, or looking at a creek or the sky. "What's this? What's that?" And at one point, I finally said, "It's all of it, nature. All of it is nature, including you and me." In my frustration, I boiled up and said just the first thing that could come to mind that would put everything to rest: it's all nature. And like every great 3-year-old, the next words that came out of his mouth was another question. "Wow, what's that?" To which I said, "All of it. It's all nature." Not sufficient for that 3-year-old. "What's this?" "Nature. What is nature? Wow, nature. Tell me what nature is." And I said, "It's all of creation." "Wow, what's that?" "Creation is something that is given to us. It's something that's made." "Wow, why?" Great question from a 3-year-old. Another great question. And my wife, she looks over her shoulder at me, just testing to see what comes next. And I said, "Why? Why is nature created? Why is it given to us?" And I knew that this was a moment where the Holy Spirit could infuse and animate the life of my conversation, of my words, and how I teach my children. And I said the only thing that came to mind was that creation and creatures are the result of love. We only create things in and from and out of a place of love. And he said, "Wow." My wife turned around and she said, "Wow." It was one of those rare moments. I'm sure you can relate. But I wasn't finished yet, nor was the Holy Spirit. And I told my son, I said, remember earlier today when you were in the garden with Mama? You know, it's springtime. We're getting the garden ready. And he said, yeah. And I said, you were planting seeds in the garden, right? He said, yes. I said, why? The answer is he loves gardening. Mama loves gardening. They love the fruit of the earth. And I told my son, this is co-creation. You are participating in the creation of all of creation. You are co-creating because you love the earth. You love your body. You love each other. You love sharing in abundance. You love participating with creation. This is an act of participating with our God who creates out of love and abundance and sharing his gifts with us. And I reflected back on these lines. Teach your children, and let your children teach their children, and let those children teach yet another generation. And I thank God for this gift that he has given us, this creation that he's given us, that I'm able to pass down what my father told me and his father told him and the generations before, all down the line, that we are just one particular people situated in a grand story, in a grand creation that is given to us in love, out of love, and for love.